everyone! I have decided to start posting art lessons online that can be done with various supplies that you already have in your house. This is going to be great for any age. I'm going to show you a couple adaptations to make this project a little bit easier for younger skill levels and a little bit harder for older skill levels. So the project I'm going to be showing you today is called string art, which is the example I have right below. String art is a way to create a silhouette using string or yarn or even rubber bands. It's filling in that negative space to make it a positive space. Now, a lot of times when you see these done, they are done with a piece of wood, and instead of, I have push pins right here, these would be little nails. And realistically, for a lot of students' skill levels, that is a bit advanced for them to be nailing every little nail in a big piece of wood. Now, for high school level or junior high level, this could be done that way with adult supervision. But right now I'm going to show you the easy adaptation of that you can do in your house with supplies that you already have laying around. So I'm actually going to move this out of the way and get a fresh box. I would suggest using a box that can close. I just had an old one laying around that I had a package in, and I just simply flipped it over. The reason being is if we are using push pins or toothpicks, we don't want our little kitties to get their hands poked by the sharp pieces. So if we have them pushing the sharp pieces into something that they literally cannot get their hands into, it's going to make it a lot safer. So I grabbed a box. The first thing you're going to do with your box is you're going to think of an object that when you look just at its silhouette, meaning just at the outline around it, that you're able to tell what it is. Something that would be a good object to do is, for instance, I have this little owl right here. Now this owl, if I just trace my finger around it to get my outline or my silhouette, I realize that if I just look at it, I'm able to tell that this is an owl. And if I were to make the silhouette of my owl on my string art, you would be able to tell what it is. An object that might not be a good one would be a mug like this. I know it's a mug, but if I just trace the outline of it, it's going to be very hard to tell what it is when we just look at the silhouette because it has more of a cylinder shape. So when you're picking your object that you want to use, it could be something that you have laying around the house that you want to physically trace onto your box, or it could be something that you come up with in your head. So I am actually going to take my owl that I have. I'm going to put it in the middle of the box. That way it's easiest for me to have workspace around it. Now, with cardboard boxes, you can use basically anything to trace on it. If you push hard with a pencil, you're going to be able to see your outline. If you use a pen, you're going to be able to tell where your line is. Or if you want a nice thick line, you can use a Sharpie. And I'm going to be using the Sharpie just so you're able to see it. So I'm going to put it in the middle of my box, hold it down, and just trace around it all the way. The lines that you're making when you're tracing is actually the silhouette of your object. And this doesn't have to be perfect. You can always go back and fix some of your lines. This is just kind of a template to show you where your lines are. So if I look at this, if I were to add a nose to it and some eyes, we would be able to tell that that is an owl. So the next thing that you're going to need after this step is you're going to need either push pins. I like the type of push pins that have this little knob at the top right here, because the string or whatever you're putting on, it has a little lip to hold it. If you do not have that, you can also use toothpicks. Now, I will warn you with toothpicks, since they do have two sharp sides, it's really important to monitor your child when they're doing this, that when they're pushing in from the middle and not the top. I'm going to be using toothpicks just for this one. So the main points that you're going to want to use your toothpicks or your thumbtacks is everywhere that there is a little indent, you need to have a toothpick or a push pin, because that's what's defining your shape. If you have extra ones, you can go around the curves of them. So I'm going to hold mine in the middle and push. I will say that the push pins are definitely easier to push in, but toothpicks are also able to work. So I'm going to go around. Oh, that one doesn't want to go in. There we go. If you find this too hard just pushing in, if you have one push pin, what you can do is always pre-drill your hole by just pushing your thumbtack in, pulling it out, and then pushing your toothpick right where it is. I'll show you that one more time. I'm going to take my push pin, push it directly into my cardboard all the way so it's flat. I'm going to pull that back out, and right where I made that hole, I'm going to push my toothpick in. Now, let's say that you only have a couple toothpicks and a couple push pins. By all means, you can use both. The push pins are going to make it a little bit easier to hold your thread on, but it's also going to require a little bit more hand-eye coordination to get it onto that lip because it's smaller. Whereas if you use a toothpick, I mean, look how much space you have. This is going to be great for younger skill levels because they're going to have all this space to wrap their yarn around. Okay, so I have all my points down. These two areas are pretty big, so I'm going to want to make sure that I put one in each of those. And I actually just ran out of toothpicks, so I'm just going to put a push pin right there. And I might put a push pin over here, and over here. You don't want these to be too close, but you also do not want a large gap between them. Okay, so if I look at this, I can tell where my outline is, and now I'm ready to fill it in. So you can use a couple of different things. You can use just string that you have, which is what I used for my other project. So just any color string. Darker colors are just going to be easier to see, but you could use any color that you have laying around, any thickness of thread or string. You can also use just rubber bands. These are literally rubber bands that I have off of asparagus. These will work. Now I will let you know, because they are stretchy, if you're trying to do a big area, that force that you're putting on that rubber band will sometimes snap your little sticks off. So this would be good for smaller areas, or if you want to do a basic shape first. So let's say before this you wanted to try out this process and you wanted to just make a square. Okay, you could do that with this. This would be good for smaller areas. If you have different size ones, like the regular ones that you would buy that are different thicknesses, those would also work. Just be careful with how stretchy it is. The size of the band before you stretch it is about how much you want to stretch it. You don't want to stretch it too wide because it'll just collapse everything. And I also just have some yarn from a knitting project that I had extra. This is going to work perfect as well, so I'm actually going to use it for my owl. If you're using string or thread, the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to tie it to one of your sticks. So I'm just going to do a basic tie like you would if you tie your shoe. Make a loop, go under, through, and give it a little pull. It doesn't need to be super tight. You just want to make sure that it's your anchor so your string doesn't all fly off. This little piece you can cut off, or you can kind of just tuck in the middle. You're not going to notice it once you get started. So the amount of string or yarn that you need is going to depend on how big your piece is. Okay, if you have little pieces of string or yarn, by all means you can just knot them together with that same knot to make a larger area. So I'm just going to hold this ball in my hand, and I'm going to go to the opposite point first and wrap that around. Then I'm going to come over here, wrap it around one of these, and keep going. You don't want to do ones that are right next to each other because it's not going to give you that cool negative space. And with yarn, it might get stuck on other ones just because of the fibers in it. And you can see that I'm holding the base, or I'm guiding the string around some of them just to make sure that they stick down nicely. Your first goal is that, oh, stay in there. Your first goal is that you want to get around every stick that you put in or every push pin once. Okay, you want to go around each of those ones. If you need to or you want to, you can go around the other ones that already have a piece of string on them. So right now, every one of my string anchors, my toothpicks, have yarn wrapped around them at least once. If I like it how it is, I can stop. If I want to fill in these areas, I can keep going. I can wrap it around multiple ones to fill in more areas. The string that I'm using right now is about 6 feet long, but you could have a longer piece of string if you want it, or a shorter, depending on the size of your template or your silhouette that you made and how much you want it filled in. So I ran out of string. 2 things that I can do. If I want to stop, I can easily just tuck this in. If I do not want to keep this, if this was just to practice this form of art making, very simply, I can pull all of it off. Whoops. Very carefully that you don't accidentally make anything pop off like that. Kind of ball it up as I'm going. And then this knot I can actually just slide right off because it's not super on there. Okay, I can ball my string up. I can take all of these out. And then I could create something else. So I only use this much on my box. I could go over here and create another one. I could go over here, create another one, and continue. It's going to be up to your child to decide what they would like to do. But these all come out super, super easy, even the toothpicks. So this is stuff that you can just keep reusing and reusing and reusing. One thing I want to note, if you notice when I use this string, because it's pretty thick, I didn't have a lot of negative space, or I didn't have a lot of shapes, or a space that I can see my cardboard left. That's just due to the thickness of that. If you like that filled in look, definitely use a thicker yarn or use more string so you can keep going over your spots to fill in your whole space. If you don't like that look, I would suggest using yarn. I'm sorry, not using yarn, using thread. So I'm gonna bring it back to this one. Make sure you guys can see it. Okay. So this one I used with just a little spindle of thread that I had laying around. If you notice on this one, let's see if I can bring it to you, you can see all of the little string spaces that I made. These spaces right here are the negative spaces that I was talking about. This will give you more of a scattered line look to your piece than the other yarn would. To do this one, you're literally going to do the same exact thing. Trace your silhouette. I use just push pins for this one. Notice though it is still a closed box, so I'm not able to get my hands in there at all. Sorry, my cat has decided that she wants to play. Not right now, please. And very similar with this one, instead of balling it up, I'm just going to hold the spindle and kind of let the string go through two of my fingers. And I'm still going to go around each of my push pins to opposite sides. Now with the thread, it's really easy to just keep going over them because the thread is so thin that it's going to keep making different lines. You want to try and switch up as well which push pins you go to. So if I go to the same push pins over and over and over again, all it's going to do is just make one giant line. So every time you go around, just kind of randomly choose, it's going to make different lines. Then when I'm done with this one, same thing. If I want to keep this piece, I can cut this off and tie it around one of my push pins like I did to start with. Or, because it's already on a spindle, I can reverse roll it and go around. Oops. Try that again. Reverse roll it. So it's back on my spindle, and I can do this again. Now, if you want this to be multicolored, what you can do is, let's say I also want to add red to this. I can cut this off, tie it around my spindle, tie it around my push pin, I'm sorry, the same way that you did to start with, and then you would just start with a new color. Tie it on another push pin, and do the same method. To advance this to a higher level, like I said, you could, while monitoring your child, you could have a block of wood instead of a piece of cardboard, and these could be just small nails that you would use to hang stuff on, and they would do the same method. For younger students, you could simplify this just a little bit more by just using basic shapes. For instance, first graders can easily do this. You can just have them draw basic shapes, circles, triangles, maybe a star. Anything that has a little bit more of a point to it would be more interesting to do. But they can definitely do this with adult supervision. And this is just a fun way to keep them going. They can start this and stop this, and every time you get a package or have a empty cereal box or something that has sides to it, your child can work on this at home. Well, I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope your kiddos at home have a fun time doing this. I will be posting another video in a couple of days about how to create an art project at home that uses supplies that you already have around the house. Well, thanks for watching, guys.